As some of you know, I stream Pathfinder, I stream a lot of tabletop RPG games, and I've been using Roll20 primarily for my main tabletop or my main virtual tabletop to run these games. However, as of last week, I have switched over from Roll20 over to Foundry. Still have some kinks to knock out, but overall, I switched over most of my games to Foundry, and I don't think I'm gonna go back. It's quite amazing some of the things that it can do. So I'm gonna talk a bit about on this video about things for Roll20 that are good, things that I like in Foundry that are good, and kind of a bit of a comparison between the both of them. So stay tuned if you're interested in checking out Roll20 versus Foundry. Let's go. Alright, so first let's start with Roll20 and what's good about Roll20. Well, Roll20 is free. It doesn't cost you anything to sign up to play. You can log in, make an account, and get going right away. Yes, you can get all subscription models for like Pro and stuff if you want like dynamic lighting and extra assets and stuff like that. That is all good and well, but you don't technically need any of that to get going. On top of that, Roll20 also has a somewhat simple UI. It's not too complicated once you get in there. You know, things are kind of where you expect them to be. It's after a little bit of like going through the different tabs, you kind of know where everything is. It's not that overly complex as something like a Foundry or Fantasy Grounds when you log in at the first time. May be a bit more overwhelming on what's on the screen and all around there. Next thing that's good about Roll20 is obviously it's a very popular system and it has a lot of different game systems on there. So there's a good chance that someone has made something for that particular game system that you want to play. They add a bunch of assets and a bunch of different, you know, art and style and cool little effects to the Roll20 that can be useful. However, this will lead me into some of the points that are against Roll20, which I will be talking about momentarily. The issue with Roll20, or issues, shall we say, is let's start with the first one. Well, the first one being, as many people know, Roll20 does have connection issues sometimes, and I've had quite a few games where I've had players either had to, you know, restart the computer, reload Roll20. There was connection issues from the server completely, so we had to like delay our game because Roll20 had maintenance and they had to like fix their server issues. Happened quite a few times, and sometimes I feel like Roll20 isn't the most optimized software out there in terms of the website, and I feel like sometimes doing simple tasks can really screw up the game. Which brings me to the other point, which was about assets. And this is kind of my direction for Roll20. And I'll be honest, not going back and going through things, but I do follow Roll20 on Twitter and stuff. For the past few updates, announcements that I've seen them make, none of them have really been, in my opinion, going in the right direction. They're adding a lot of fancy stuff to Roll20, but I feel like the utility and practicality of Roll20 is what really needs the rework and the upgrades. The best comparison I can put to this is, say, you have a really old, beat-down car, but you give it a nice, good paint job. You know, you give it like some cool tribal markings on the side, a spoiler, whatever. You know, all this cool, superficial outside stuff. But the engine in the car is still kind of crap. And that essentially is what Roll20 is kind of doing. You know, we have animated spell effects. We have animated maps and animated traps. I'm about like a while back, a year or so ago maybe, I think that we got the custom status markers where people could then like make their own status marker indicators, and then you could upload them and sell them on Roll20. That was a thing that was like recent, like a year and a half ago. But all these kind of like additional visual effects, but the gameplay is still kind of lacking. The compendiums are still struggling. And all that I feel like are things that could be more useful and more beneficial, in my opinion. Speaking of compendiums, well, where do we begin with that? The issue I have with this is, one, back in the old days, like when I used to play 1E, They didn't really have a compendium for Pathfinder. They had it for D&D, and that was okay. However, I felt like Pathfinder was a bit struggling. 2E, they're getting a bit better because it's new and they seem to be working with Paizo a bit more. But the issue with that is that you have to pay for it. You have to buy the compendium add-on for it to be in your game. So for instance, as a GM, if I want the bestiary in my game, I have to buy it on Roll20 and then add it onto my game. Now, yes, if I have bought it through Paizo and I link my Paizo account to the thing, it links, I get a discount and all that's fine and dandy, but I still have to buy it twice, basically. And that's gonna add up to quite a bit of money. You know, that's just one bestiary. Say I want to buy the rulebook. That's another one. Adventure paths. Yes, some adventure paths have been made into Roll20. Well, guess what? You can buy them, but if you have the digital, if you have the product already, you still need to buy it again on Roll20. So it's just double purchase. Well, for the same product, you're basically paying double the amount, which is not a good model. It's really hard, and especially in today's world and today's economy, people just can't be buying the same product 2 or 3 times and not get the value out from it, you know? They just can't. This brings me to Foundry. Now, the best way to say about Foundry is, as I compared Roll20 to the fancy car with the crappy engine, Foundry is a bit of the opposite. Foundry gives you the car chassis and says, what do you want? If we have it, we can put it on the car. You have to tell us what you want and we'll kind of put it together for you. But you have a pretty blank slate. I'll go into this a bit more. What I mean by this is, first things first, I want to tackle some of the one glaring first thing bad about Foundry. And that is, Foundry is not technically free. You do have to buy a license to run the game. A license costs around $50 USD, and you may get it on a sale depending on the time of the year and so what. But there is a one-time purchase that you have to do for it. After that purchase, you have 2 options for running your game. The first option is to locally run the game on your computer, and then you have to like do some port forwarding so that to allow your players to essentially join your computer and join your game to play it. The other option is what they call the Forge, which essentially will host the game for you. You do have to pay a monthly subscription for it, and it gives you the option to run multiple games and other additional features and the like. So that's similar to if you had like a pro account from Roll20, kind of like that. But that's just to run the games, and you have to pay that. So it is a bit more costly in that regard. Now, if that's the catch, obviously they must have something that can be worth it. And they do. All right, first thing I want to talk about Foundry that is amazing is flat out, if you run any sort of published adventure game, and you know, anybody who knows me, I run primarily published campaigns and published adventure paths. They have a tool called a PDF importer. What this does is, if you purchase the PDF for an adventure path, you can import it into the game, and it will automatically make all the maps for you and put in all the enemies from that book. You may have to do some tweaking in terms of like adding some art for some of the tokens, because some tokens may not have the art, so you do have to kind of install that and get that sorted out. But in terms of setting up the maps and setting up, just getting all the creatures in the actual tabletop, it does it in like 5 minutes. And that's crazy. That alone is worth it. I could stop the video right now and be like, just drop the mic and leave. And that's worth the price. But there's more. That's the crazy part. There's more. Now, I'm going to be talking about these primarily from Pathfinder 2e, but a lot of these same things apply to D&D as well. So I'm sure there's a D&D equivalent out there for a lot of these similar things. Okay. Anybody who's played Pathfinder, you know Pathfinder has a lot of modifiers floating around. Well, there's ways to track that very easily. It automatically tracks that. If you give yourself the frightened condition, if you give yourself flat-footed, if you give yourself clumsy, it automatically adjusts your stats for you on your character sheet automatically. How many times do you do that in Roll20 and it doesn't do it? Yeah, you have frightened 2 as a condition. It says it should be doing something, but it doesn't do it half the time. Oh, and get this. You can actually have it built in a way where the game will say, like, it'll say, like, you know, on a save, frightened 1, on a fail, frightened 2, and it says effect, frightened 2. And you can actually click on that, drag it onto your token, and once you drag it onto the token, it applies the condition from the text box onto the character sheet automatically for you with visual representation. Good God. How easy it is when someone says, oh, everybody gets haste. They can just go click, drag, boom, I got haste. I don't have to do some weird token reminder stuff. I don't have to like count that. It's just there. Amazing. They have a scene navigation. You can have multiple scenes. So you can have, if players want to go back to another scene, well, in Roll20 it would be pages, they can go back, and if you set it up correctly, they can do it on their own. Maybe you have like a splash screen that has like notes or like, you know, like maybe a tracking type of information. They can check it back if they want to. Maybe you have like maps for like city maps set up as a whole page. They can just go back and check it themselves. You don't have to drag them over to their own page. You don't have to make it into a handout. You can do that themselves. I mean, so far, that's just a few things off the top of my head that is coming out. They have one thing that it's very minor, but for me, I like it. Just because it's something that I've always wanted to have in my Pathfinder games. They have an actual world clock, which you can actually modify and track the time, the dates and stuff on the clock. Why is this important? You know how many times in my career as a Pathfinder GM, I've had players ask me what the day is, what month is it, what time of the year is it right now? And unless the campaign specifically has a trigger that says, you know, this should happen sometime in the fall, etc., or, you know, this spring festival kicks off the campaign, whatever. I don't know. It doesn't matter to me. I don't think that far. But if I have a way that I can actually track it, so someone goes, oh, hey, what day is it? And I go, well, it's the 27th day of Neth, and it is the toil day. So, like, I can spit out a day like that perfectly. A little thing. Not major, but it's a little thing. Anyway, back to the updates. Let's go. All right. So, we also have a Dice So Nice, which anybody who plays Foundry, it's probably one of the most popular modules to add on Foundry. It gives you customizable dice. Every player can customize their own dice. You can add updates to give it different textures, sound effects, special effects if they roll a 20 or they roll a 1. It can do cool little things. And it doesn't seem that graphically intensive in terms of like rolling the 3D dice in Roll20. I haven't had anybody bombard Foundry by rolling 100 D100s and stuff like that, but hopefully just from what it can do, it can roll it fine, no problem. The last kind of nice thing I want to talk about for Foundry is it looks a lot better. Flat out. I'm going to put up a comparison for you guys between what Roll20 looks like, the same scene, versus the Foundry version of the same exact scene. UI and everything. And then you can tell me what your thoughts are on the difference between these two, and if you think it's awesome or not. Let me know in the comments down below. I would like to hear what you guys think about that one. And while you guys are down there, be sure to subscribe for more Pathfinder content, more tabletop content, and more Foundry content coming as well. Now, back to the Foundry discussion. While we're on the topic about the UI and everything looking nice, I will give Foundry one critical thing as well. Foundry is not that intuitive coming over from Roll20. They like to use the right click instead of left click for a lot of things, and a lot of features are really not easy and explained right away. That definitely takes some work for that. My comparison for them giving you the chassis isn't that far from the truth. They give you the chassis, they give you the foundation to do whatever you want with the system and the tools. But if you don't have any knowledge of cars, you might be completely lost on what to do and what has to go in and what to make your life easier. I will say that is a big thing, and it can definitely turn some people off if you try it and you're not sure what to do with it. So keep that in mind. All right. So with that, we've talked a bit about Roll20. We've talked a bit about Foundry. And does that mean Roll20 is dead? No. Roll20 is still very popular. It's free. It's easy. It's going to keep going for a while until something bad happens. Do I think Roll20 might be in a little trouble? Yeah, I honestly do. If Roll20 doesn't keep themselves up to date and innovative, a lot of new virtual tabletops will pass them. Back in the old days, I couldn't name more than I was surprised to even see Roll20 when I first saw it. I was like, you're telling me I can play tabletops on the computer through people and then not look like total crap? Is that real? I was amazed. But now we have Foundry, we have Fantasy Grounds, we have Astral Tabletop, I think we have Tailspire, I think there's some other one out there as well. You know, there's 4 or 5 other tabletops I can just roll off other than Roll20 that's out there. And they all, in my opinion, have things about them that look better and may actually run better than Roll20. So Roll20 is only the, if you will, budget option or the easy option. But if those other ones become more and more welcoming and more easy to pick up players, I think Roll20 is going to struggle. Especially because I was a big Roll20 person. And my players kept talking about, you know, they were winning games in Foundry, some of them. And they played some games and they were saying how easy some of the things were in there, how amazing some of the stuff was there. And I tried it out I tried it out myself. And I gotta, you know, I have to agree with them. It's a whole new ball game with Foundry. Yes, there's going to be some hiccups and, you know, some growing pains. But overall, it is simply amazing. Hope you guys have been enjoying this video. And thank you guys for watching this video.